It was supposed to be the kind of night that reminds two people why they started. 13 years of marriage. One child. 2 homes. 1,000 memories. And a reservation at the same quiet bistro where I first told her I loved her, back when we were still fumbling through each other's dreams and insecurities. The waiter had just poured the second glass of Merlot when she reached for her purse. "I'm not feeling well," she said. "Migraine. I'm gonna head home." I looked up, confused. "Do you want me to come with you?" She smiled, soft and strained. "No, no. You stay. It's your favorite place. I just need to lie down." She kissed my cheek, absent, like you'd kiss a child before heading to work, and disappeared into the night. For a few seconds, I sat there. Just sat there. The candle flickered, and everything around me felt rehearsed. That moment, that excuse, that half-lie in her voice. It wasn't the first time she'd left early. Not the first headache, not the first missed kiss. But it was the first time I didn't ignore the tightening in my chest. I stood up, apologized to the waiter, left cash on the table, and I followed her. I didn't mean to. That's the truth. I told myself I was just going to check that she got home safe. Maybe pick up her favorite lemon tea from the store. But something pulled me past the intersection, past our street, past the lie. She didn't go home. She drove across town. And when she parked, I recognized the building. Not because I'd been there before, but because of the way she'd talked about it weeks ago, offhandedly, like it was nothing. "New guy at work, just moved into a loft near the river. Says the traffic's a nightmare." She said it while scrolling through her phone. I remember because she laughed at something she didn't explain. Now I knew what it was. She buzzed herself in. I stayed in the shadows, across the street, behind a van. My heart didn't race. That was the strange part. It just dropped. Quietly. Like a hand letting go of something it had clung to for too long. I didn't follow her inside. I didn't need to. Because I already knew. I waited there for 23 minutes. Watched the lights flicker on. 3rd floor. Window open. A man's silhouette. Her voice. Laughter. Barely audible. And I turned around and walked away. I couldn't sleep that night. She came home at 3:11 a.m. Shoes in hand. Hair tousled. The faint scent of sandalwood that didn't belong to me. I pretended to be asleep. Listened to the way she moved. Hesitant. Quiet. Like a stranger in her own house. She slipped into bed beside me and sighed. Not a sigh of guilt. A sigh of relief. That hurt the most. The next day, I drove back to the building. Parked across the street. Bought coffee I didn't drink. And waited. At 7:46 a.m., she left. Alone. Looking tired. I stepped out of the car once she was gone. Crossed the street. Climbed the 3 flights of stairs, heart calm but heavy, and stood in front of apartment 3C. I didn't knock. I didn't leave a note. Just a small black box. Wrapped in the same paper I used the day I proposed. Inside was a pair of cufflinks. Silver. Engraved with the date of our anniversary. And a note. She wore this perfume the first time she said she loved me. I thought you should have it. No name. No address. Just that. Then I walked away. I didn't hear anything that day. She didn't mention the box. Didn't ask if I was okay. She made pasta that night. Overcooked it. Laughed about it. I laughed too. And then I cried in the shower, quietly, so she wouldn't hear. Not because I'd lost her, but because I'd finally admitted to myself that I had. I didn't plan what happened next. Didn't plan to go back. But sometimes, the heart leads you places your pride would never walk into alone. And that's exactly what happened the next morning. She opened the box. She read the note. And when I came downstairs, she was sitting at the kitchen table, still in her robe, eyes red, hands shaking, and in front of her, the box, open, tears running down her cheeks. She looked up at me and whispered, "But I'll stop here." That moment, when the truth finally stepped into the light, is where the Rayal story begins. She looked up at me, eyes wet, lips trembling, and whispered, "Did you follow me?" It wasn't an accusation. It wasn't even a question, really. It was the voice of someone who already knew the answer, someone who had just come face to face with the wreckage they'd tried to pretend wasn't there. I didn't speak. Not right away. I walked past her, poured myself coffee I didn't want, and leaned against the counter. The air between us felt paper-thin and about to tear. She picked up the note again, running her fingers over the ink like she couldn't believe it was real. "You left this at his door?" she asked. I nodded. And in that nod, something shifted. The mask she'd been wearing for months cracked, just enough to let the truth spill out. "I didn't mean for it to get this far," she said. voice barely audible. I stared at her, exhausted from holding my emotions in for too long. What part got too far? The lying? Or the loving someone else? She flinched like I'd slapped her, and for a second I hated myself for saying it. But not enough to take it back. She reached for the cufflinks again, then stopped, as if touching them burned. We weren't supposed to happen, she whispered. It started as, I don't know, flirting, harmless. Or at least that's what I told myself. I let the silence sit, because sometimes silence does more than shouting ever could. I thought we were fading, she said. You were so distant. Always in your head. Always working. I didn't know how to reach you anymore. I took a long breath. So instead of trying, you reached for someone else. She wiped her eyes. I'm not defending it. God, I felt invisible. That word landed hard. Invisible. Not unloved. Not unwanted. Invisible. And the part that hurt wasn't just that she felt it. It was that I had, too. For a long time. But I didn't run. I didn't stray. I held on, even when it felt like I was the only one doing the holding. I was tired too, I said quietly. Tired of trying to guess what version of you I was waking up next to. Tired of pretending I didn't notice the distance. The late meetings. The long showers. She buried her face in her hands. I didn't sleep with him until last month, she said, muffled. But emotionally, it started long before that. I nodded again, because that part I already knew. Infidelity doesn't start in bedrooms. It starts in moments, in glances, in secrets. I was going to end it, she said. I swear. I didn't know how. I turned and faced the window, watching the trees sway in the early morning wind. You could have started with the truth. She didn't respond. We sat in silence for what felt like an hour. Two people in the same room, breathing the same air, but standing on opposite sides of a broken bridge. I don't hate you, I said at last. But I don't think I trust you either. Her voice cracked. I don't blame you. I stepped closer to the table and looked at the box. Do you know why I chose those cufflinks? I asked. She shook her head. They were the last gift I ever gave you that you truly seemed to love. You wore them to every anniversary after our wedding. Even this one, until you left. She swallowed hard, her eyes falling to her lap. I left that box not to hurt you, I said, but to give you a piece of what you threw away. Her tears came faster now. I'm sorry, she whispered. I believed her. And yet, it didn't feel like enough. Not anymore. That day passed slowly. She didn't go to work. Neither did I. We circled each other in that house like ghosts, brushing past the outlines of our old lives, tiptoeing around the wreckage. That evening, she came into the living room, holding her phone. I blocked him, she said. Deleted every thread. Every photo. Everything. I nodded. But I didn't ask her to. And I didn't thank her for it. Because some things, once broken, can't be patched with a clean phone. That night, we slept in the same bed. Not touching. Not speaking. Just breathing, back to back. She fell asleep quickly, her body exhausted from the unraveling. I stayed awake for hours, staring at the ceiling, wondering who I was now, wondering who she was, wondering if love was still buried somewhere beneath the ruin, or if we'd both just grown used to the shape of each other's presence, even as the meaning behind it had faded. I didn't know, but I knew this. Something had ended, and whatever came next would either heal us or end us completely. 3 days passed. 3 long, aching days. We didn't talk about it. Not directly. The silence between us was almost sacred, like we were both afraid that saying the wrong thing would make everything crumble even further. I went through the motions. Work, coffee, laundry. She stayed home most days, quieter than I'd ever seen her. She moved around the house like a guest who didn't know how long she was welcome. On the 4th night, she asked if I wanted to go for a walk. I almost said no. But something in her voice, soft, hesitant, stripped of every mask, made me nod. It was a cool evening. The kind of September night that hinted at fall, when the air turns crisp and smells like distant fires and fading summers. We walked in silence for a while, down the same streets we used to walk when we were young and didn't have wounds yet. Eventually, we stopped at a bench near the park. She sat first. I stayed standing. Then she spoke. I don't want to ask you for forgiveness, she said. Not because I don't want it, but because I know I haven't earned it. I looked at her, the way her fingers trembled in her lap, the way her eyes stayed on the pavement. I was broken, she said, but I didn't ask for help. I let it fester. And instead of turning to you, I ran from you. I sat down beside her. She continued, "And when you followed me that night, I realized how long it had been since you actually looked at me. Not past me, not around me, at me." I didn't interrupt. "I hated myself for what I'd done," she said. "But more than that, I hated the version of me you left that gift for. That woman, she didn't deserve your patience." We sat there in silence for a long while. Then I finally spoke. "I still love you," I said. Her head snapped toward me, eyes wide, brimming. "But I don't know if I like you." She nodded slowly. "I don't like me either. I want to," I added. "I want to find the version of us that used to make sense. I just don't know if that's still possible." She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the box, the cufflinks. She opened it, placed it on the bench between us like a shared memory, and whispered, "Then let's start here." I stared at them. Small, silver, ordinary. But they had become something else now. A symbol. Of pain. Of hope. Of all the things we almost lost, and maybe, if we were careful, could still rebuild. "We're not going back to who we were," I said. "No," she replied. "But maybe we can become someone new." That night, she moved into the guest room. Not as punishment, not as exile, but as space. Space to breathe. Space to grieve. Space to rebuild. Not just trust, but self-respect. Hers. Mine. Ours. Weeks passed. Then months. We went to therapy. Separately at first, then together. We argued. A lot. But we also started talking. Really talking. About what went wrong. About the silences. About the resentment neither of us had known how to name before it became a wall between us. And slowly, brick by brick, we took that wall down. Not for a fairy tale ending, but for a beginning. A real one. On our next anniversary, 1 year to the day after she left that restaurant early, we returned to the same place. Same table. Same soft lighting. Same waiter, who recognized us and smiled. We didn't toast. We didn't make grand declarations. But when the dessert came, she slid a small box across the table. I opened it. Inside, a new pair of cufflinks. Gold this time, and engraved with one word. Begin. She looked at me and said, "If you'll still have me, I'd like to start again." I didn't speak. I just reached across the table, took her hand, and for the first time in a long time, I felt us again. Not perfect, not repaired, but real. Some betrayals don't end in fire. Some end in tears, truth, and a question. Can love survive the truth? Ours did. Barely. But it did. And sometimes, barely is all you need to begin again.